Welcome to part 2 of a case study in gaslighting. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Like this video and turn on the notifications so you can find out when I drop the next video. You can also view my 4-minute video on Gaslighting 101 to learn about 8 techniques that are used in an attempt to gaslight someone. All right, let's get started.
I knew who he was. I wasn't familiar, I wasn't a fan of his work. I wasn't familiar with him, but I knew who he was. He's one of the most famous people in the world.
Were you a fan of Johnny's growing up?
Who isn't a fan of Johnny's? That's a given. He's been a cultural icon and a talented actor since I can remember.
There are tapes in which you acknowledge hitting. There are tapes in which you say, I started the fight.
I know much has been made of these audio tapes. And as I testified on the stand, what you would hear in those clips are not evidence of what was happening. It was evidence of a negotiation of how to talk about that with your abuser.
View part 1 of a case study in gaslighting so you can hear the audio tapes and then you can see if what you hear is a negotiation with an abuser.
His lawyers argued at trial. None of his other prior relationships, not one woman has come forward and said he physically hit them. You were the only one.
Look what happened to me when I came forward. Would you?
Wait a second, Amber. So his exes did come forward, but they actually came forward in support of him. In this Me Too era, many of the Hollywood actresses have come out against, let's say people like Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby. Amber Heard, on the other hand, does have a sketchy past with DV. Let's take a look.
Isn't it true that you've been previously arrested for committing domestic violence against your spouse?
I'm going to irrelevant, harassing, has nothing to do with this proceeding. It's argumentative. Go ahead and explain how you want to.
There was no domestic violence within that relationship, and the state of Washington, where I was arrested, immediately dropped the charges because they knew the exact same thing that I just told you, that no domestic violence ever occurred. And my ex has stated such. In fact, it was so ridiculous, those charges. It was a verbal argument, it was misinterpreted, misrepresented, and completely overreacted upon by 2 individuals in a power position. And as soon as they found out that we were partners, which we were not going to be arrested for before, as soon as they found out we were partners, the male cop, not this other woman who's later been brought into the press, this male cop put me in handcuffs, and that's it. There was no physical violence, no physical abuse, and zero domestic violence whatsoever between us. It was a trumped up charge, and it was dropped immediately for being such.
Isn't it a fact, Ms. Heard, that on September 14th, you were in fact taken to jail? It wasn't dropped immediately.
Same objections, Vegas.
Same objections.
Isn't it a fact, Ms. Heard, that you spent the night in jail from September 14th to September 15th, 2009, as a result of your arrest for domestic violence?
Are you familiar with the defendant in this matter, Amber Heard?
Yes, I am.
And how are you familiar with her?
I met her in 2009 at SeaTac International Airport.
Why were you at the airport?
I worked there.
What happened when you met Ms. Heard in 2009?
I was in the baggage claim area, and I observed her with a traveling companion, and they got into an altercation where Ms. Heard had grabbed her traveling companion and pulled something from her neck. At that point, I got up and went over to try to break up what appeared to be a fight. And I summoned a colleague to help me, and I stepped in between them and separated them, stopping any further injuries or escalation.
Not too long ago, Popcorn Planet, a channel here on YouTube, had Stephen Crowley to talk about Amber's past DV, and Stephen was a co-star with Amber in the movie Never Back Down. Let's see what he has to say.
So Tasha leaves. I go over to Amber's place, and the apartment is trashed. Like trashed. It's not her apartment, right? It's an apartment that this production's renting for her while we film. And you know, it's trashed. It looks like I was like, what happened? You guys have a fight?
And Johnny Depp wasn't there, for the record.
Johnny Depp wasn't there. And I don't know if this was before or after that arrest in Canada or Seattle, wherever that was. But she was like, yeah, Tasha, we got in a fight. Over what? I said, they got in a fight because Amber, and there's so many stories, man. They got in a fight because Tasha found out about Amber taking home a female stripper from the local strip club in Orlando. So what I saw was the apartment afterwards, and she said her and Tosh got into a fight. And look, there was broken things on the ground.
Wow, sounds familiar.
It was trash. So I don't know who initiated what. But you know, it's like I can't comment on it, but the fact that like you got into a fight and then look, you get arrested at the airport for punching her. I'm not to say who initiated what there, but like the fact that you're getting physical, in a way that like you walked in and I was like, what the hell happened? Like it looked like someone came in and trashed the apartment.
Violence against women is an issue that transcends all socioeconomic, geographic boundaries. Everyone is affected. It's a global issue, and it's an issue that has been relegated mostly to the private sector. It's largely unspoken about, underrepresented, underreported. It is internationally the most underreported crime. It affects women at a disproportionate level, and it does so silently. And unless we raise awareness and talk about it and bring it to light, we can't change the system. It maintains the silence.
Does the violence that Amber allegedly perpetrated against Tasha count in this whole discourse about violence against women? Someone who gaslights wants to distract you from what they're actually doing and try to point in another direction. And so it's like she wants the public to forget that she was involved in an alleged incident of domestic violence and focused on her claims of violence that Johnny supposedly perpetrated against her.
Amber, when did the first act of physical violence by Mr. Depp occur?
Objection asked and answered.
No, overruled. Go ahead.
That would have been early 2012.
And how did you determine this?
I reviewed my therapist's
Objection,
notes.
hearsay.
She hasn't even answered it, Your Honor.
All right, I'll allow the answer.
By reviewing my therapist's notes.
When did you earlier believe the first act of physical violence occurred?
Well, I had always believed up until recently that it had started later, that the violence started around early 2013, not early 2012.
Now, you testified earlier that the first act of physical violence by Mr. Depp related to the Winona Wino tattoo. Do you recall that testimony?
I do.
Okay. Does that change your testimony, realizing that this is earlier? Was this in fact still the first act? How do you remember the first act of violence?
Well, you never forget it. That's how I remember it. It changes your life forever. You never forget the first time someone hits you like that. I just had the date wrong.
Okay. And how is it that you think you got the date wrong?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
I'm embarrassed to say I think I would have liked to have believed that the period of time in which I had to fall in love with Johnny, in which we fell in love and he was sober and he wasn't violent to me, lasted for a lot longer than it did. I think I would have liked to have believed that I wasn't hit so early in the relationship and still stayed. He was also sober for a period in 2012, which was a peaceful time for us, in which we fell in love. So I had kind of allowed myself, I guess, to forget that the beginning of that period, 2012, before he got sober, was really violent and chaotic as well. I'm embarrassed to say that.
So Amber had already testified that Johnny had hit her in early 2013. And then this instance on the stand, they are backtracking and correcting that the violence allegedly occurred in early 2012. It's common that we might forget certain things, exact dates. That's just how the human mind works over time. However, Amber has been going back and forth in this issue with Johnny for years, so she had time to review her notes or to get the story straight before she sworn in on her testimony. Additionally, to being a complete year off of something that you said you would never forget. How could you forget the first time he hit you? But then you said you allowed yourself to forget. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't go together.
Why didn't I cooperate with the police? As I've testified before, and I will stand by until my dying day, I didn't want to cooperate with them. I didn't want this to be out. I didn't want this to be known. I didn't want to cooperate with them because I didn't want this to be, I didn't want to get him in trouble. If it was a host, I could have done that.
But 5 days later, you went to court and it came out.
5 days later, I made the decision to stand up for myself and protect myself.
Why did you ask for a domestic violence temporary restraining order?
I wanted to change my locks. I wanted to change my locks. I wanted a good night's sleep. Security would always let him into the house no matter what I asked them.
There's a lot to unpack here. So Amber Heard has said that she hasn't wanted any of this to go public, and that she wanted to change her locks because she was afraid of Johnny Depp and she just wanted to get a good night's sleep without worrying about him popping up. However, there's text messages from Elon Musk on May 22nd where it seems that he's willing to provide her with security details. Seems like they have a more than friendly relationship. And then later that evening, we see James Franco coming up to visit Amber in Johnny's penthouse later that night, May 22nd. Additionally, on May 24th, there was a divorce letter that was sent from Amber's attorney to Johnny's, in which basically she is reiterating that she wants to keep this a private matter, but she needs Johnny's immediate cooperation to do so. And what does that cooperation entail? Well, she wants to maintain use of penthouses 1, 3, and 5, and Johnny to pay all mortgage utilities associated ongoing, as well as her attorney's fees, and for use of the Range Rover. So she wanted to, I guess, be living it up in Johnny's car, spending Johnny's cash, living in Johnny's homes, in exchange for her silence.
When you left the courthouse, what did you experience?
I walked into the courthouse. It was quiet. First thing in the morning. No one knew about my divorce, so I thought it was going to stay that way. And I walked out to a sea of paparazzi and cameras, photographers. It was to that point at that point in my life, had never seen so many photographers, and they just surrounded me as I walked out of that courthouse and screamed at me, screamed horrible things at me.
Hey, Amber.
Amber, did Johnny give you that bruise on your face?
Amber,
Did Johnny beat you up?
Stop. Amber,
Did Johnny beat you up?
Stop.
Did Johnny brutalize you?
Stop.
Amber?
You guys, she showed a lot of
Are you okay, Amber? You look upset.
We're back, guys.
How you doing?
You're going the wrong way. Get her through. Amber, how do you feel?
Amber, are you going to go to the doctor? Are you okay? Are you going to go to the hospital, Amber?
Excuse me. Hey,
Are you worried that Johnny might do that again? Amber, what do you have to say to Johnny? Are you getting support from me and Johnny's family? Thank you. Best of luck, Amber. Good job, Amber.
So Amber had testified that the paparazzi had yelled horrible things at her. Yeah, I didn't hear anything terrible. I mean, they were prying into her personal life, but they were asking her, are you going to go to the hospital? Are you okay? We wish you well. I mean, I don't know. It didn't sound too horrible to me. What I also found interesting is that on May 27th, Johnny was away doing press for Alice Through the Looking Glass. So, not sure why it was so urgent to get a temporary restraining order if he was going to be gone for months at a time. Another interesting fact is that she said she wanted to change her locks and she was afraid of him, and that's why she did it. But in these text messages from Amber Heard's own parents to Johnny, now these weren't admitted in the court case because it's considered hearsay evidence. But in these text messages, they're basically saying that the lawyers told her she had to do it or she'd get evicted from the penthouses. So this was more so of her trying to gain leverage or maintain possession, I should say, of his penthouses. Also interesting is that Amber Heard could have used a completely different entrance if she wanted to keep the matter private. I want to show you this clip from Emily D. Baker here on YouTube. She was a lawyer that worked at that particular courthouse, and she explains the public and the private entrances.
All right. First of all, Stanley Mosque has entrances that are concealed from the public. So you can get into the underground parking, and there are entrances to the courthouse underground. You don't have to come in and out of the public entrances. And there are 3 or 4, it's been a while since I worked at Stanley Mosque. There are 3 or 4 public entrances. There's one that goes out to like the atrium. Well, it's not really an atrium, to the green space in between where there's a Starbucks that goes towards the Hall of Admin. There's one that goes down the street, one that goes up the street, and one that goes out the other way. So there are 4 entrances and exits to Stanley Mosque that the public can see you walking around. And then there is a secured parking where you can get in and out, where celebrities would come in and out.
No, my question again. You told this jury that you had no idea that the press was going to be outside after you got the ex-party TRO on May 27th, 2016. Do you remember that testimony?
I apologize. I must have misunderstood, Ms. Vasquez. I actually had no idea whether they were going to be there or not. When I walked into the courtroom that day, it was completely quiet, still, empty. Even though I had given Johnny's team notice that I was filing the TRO,
Your Honor, this is not
we had no
responsive.
reason to
Move
believe the
strike.
press knew.
And Your Honor, I would also ask that you instruct the witness to please stop talking once I lodge an objection. In fact, you testified that you were, quote, shocked when you saw press when you were leaving the courthouse. Yes?
Yes.
You weren't shocked at all, though, were you?
Incorrect. It was
You knew the press
horrifying.
would be at the courthouse, right, Ms. Heard?
No.
Well, you did bring your publicist to the courthouse with you on May 27th, 2016, didn't you?
I sure did. I'm a public figure. I brought my publicist in case it blew up. In case. And
You
I'm
actually
glad
had
I did.
alerted TMZ that you would be filing a TRO against Mr. Depp that very
No,
day,
I did
didn't
not.
you?
No, I did
The
not.
one day you didn't bother to wear makeup to cover up the mark on your face.
I did not call TMZ or any other news source or paparazzi source. No one.
Well,
I
we
never
heard
did that.
testimony from former TMZ employee Morgan Tremaine yesterday, correct?
Did I hear his testimony?
Yes.
Yes, I was here.
Yeah. And you heard Mr. Tremaine's testimony that he knew to dispatch the paparazzi to the courthouse on May 27th, right?
I heard him say that he knew that, yes.
Yeah, and that he dispatched paparazzi to the courthouse to capture a picture of an alleged bruise on the right side of your face. Do you remember him saying that?
I remember him saying that.
That information must have come from your team, right, Ms. Heard?
Absolutely not. Why would I want that? What actual survivor of domestic violence wants that?
I would like him to know information coming from me or coming from Jerry, from me, so that he finds out about the divorce filing or my intention to do so from some other source other than TMZ, which was alerted.
Did you tip off TMZ?
I was going to say, it certainly didn't get tipped off by me or
Did
anyone in my.
anyone you know tip off TMZ?
Why would they? No.
You ask no one to do that.
As I testified to before, it had nothing to do with me. He wanted me to get back together with him and go on tour with him in the tour bus. He wanted me to do certain things that I thought were impossible and that would definitely go against all of you know, everything that I stood for and had earned in getting my TRO, getting my restraining order and moving on. But I had to break the TRO in order to beg him to stop the machine, the press machine, because I was feeling like I couldn't live my life. I was being dropped from commercial opportunities. People were turning on me. A campaign I shot dropped me. I mean, it was just, I had never been inundated with that much press.
I'm dying of dying with your time without you. Do you love me? Do you still love me? I just wanted to touch you.
Really, after all the shit you just said?
I just wanted to give
After
you
all
a
this
hug.
shit you fucking accused me of? You
Yes,
wanna touch
please,
me?
please stop. Please stop. Please, I just wanted to hug you and say bye. I didn't want to take it back.
Give you everything I did. I did everything I could do to make you happy. It wasn't. You don't want to be happy.
I wanted you. I did. I wanted you.
You fucking love me, but you don't fucking love me. Call it, write it off as a mistake. A mistake.
Would you like this?
Good, get out.
I'm getting.
So on the stand, Amber wants the public and for the jury to believe that she broke the TRO in an effort to stop further harassment or alleged harassment from Johnny Depp and media leaks. But what we hear in this audio sounds like she's not begging him to stop harassment, but she's begging him to let her hug him, to let it not end bad, and that she still loves him. Gaslighters love to confuse.
I thought I probably had a concussion and certainly that I had a broken nose. There was blood everywhere, blood all over the pillows. My head was bleeding from the ripped out hair, chunks of hair on the floor, all over the place actually. So lines 9, that I had a broken nose. Do you recall giving that testimony, Ms. Heard?
Yes, exactly.
So you had a broken nose, right?
That's absolutely what I thought.
2 black eyes after this incident, right?
I did have 2 black eyes after that incident.
And you testified that you also had a busted lip from when Mr. Depp punched you.
That is correct. From December, yes, that's correct.
You testified that the lip wound kept reopening when you moved your mouth.
That's correct.
You also testified that you had bruising on your temple.
That's correct.
And bruising on your chin.
Correct.
You also testified that your head was bleeding from where Mr. Depp ripped chunks of your hair out.
I remember, yes.
And that you had, quote, gross, pussy, and, quote, bruising around your temple.
In my scalp, yeah.
Now, for this incident, you did take pictures.
That's correct.
And we will look at some of those in a minute, but I first want to talk to you about your appearance on the James Corden show.
Sure.
You appeared on the James Corden show the day after this alleged incident, right?
I did.
And that was December 16th, 2015?
Yes, that's correct.
Move to admit and publish Plaintiff's Exhibit 98. That's a photo of you opening your mouth on the right, right?
That's correct.
And again, a larger view of the same photo on the bottom.
That's correct.
With a split lip.
You've seen pictures of it without makeup. Yes.
So you had a split lip when you were moving your mouth that way.
I sure did.
In those photographs.
Absolutely.
You testified yesterday, this is another photograph of you on the night of May 21.
That's correct.
And keeping this exhibit up, can we please do a split screen and also pull up defendant 713, which has already been admitted? Ms. Heard, you testified yesterday. This is also a photograph of you from the same night, correct?
That is correct.
You testified yesterday that the only difference between these two photographs is that the light was turned on.
That's what it appears to be, yes.
The light is on both of these pictures, though. Isn't that right?
It looks to me like the one on the left has the vanity light, the makeup lights, you know, the more yellow hued ones that go around the mirror on. And then the one on the right looks like it doesn't have those.
Isn't it true you just edited these photographs?
No, I've never edited a photograph.
Didn't you just enhance the saturation for one of these photos to make your face look more red?
No, that's incorrect. I didn't touch it.
And if we could go ahead and play that, please. Tom? And Mr. Neumeister, what's your, what do we see here in this demonstrative?
There's exhibit 712, I believe you have. I'm not sure the Bates number, 712 and 713. They're two separate exhibits, except it's the exact same photograph.
This is you at the courthouse on May 27th, 2016, when you got your domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp, right?
It is.
Now I'd like to show you what's been marked as plaintiff's exhibit 1316. This is the day after you obtained the domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp, right?
I have no idea when this image was taken. I did not take it.
There's no bruise on your face in this picture, is there?
Again, I don't know when this was taken. And also I'm outside. I was obviously wearing makeup. I have no idea when this was taken, so I have no idea if I can speak to what bruise you can see or not.
Let's refresh your recollection about when this picture was taken. Can we please pull up plaintiff's exhibit 1315, just for the witness? This is an article dated May 30th, 2016, right, Ms. Heard?
That's what it says, yes.
And this article contains the same photograph of you and Ms. Pennington we were just looking at, yes?
Yes, I see that.
And the article is entitled, Amber Heard Smiles as She Puts Arm Around Friend One Day After Getting Restraining Order Against Johnny Depp. Is that what the title says?
I know that's what the title says, yes.
There's no bruise on your face in this picture either, right?
I disagree. If it is taken when you represent it was taken, then obviously there's a bruise on my face. It's covered by makeup as per usual.
You've seen this photograph before, right?
I have.
On the second day of your direct testimony, you testified that this was taken in the downstairs of the main apartment on December 15th, 2015. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I believe so.
So it's your testimony that defendant's exhibit 512 reflects damage to penthouse 5 that occurred during the December 15th, 2015 incident. Yes?
I'm not quite sure from what incident this is when I see this photo in a vacuum without context.
Let's give you that context. Can we please, thanks. I could have day 16 trial testimony, just side by side. You've seen this photograph as well, right?
I have.
On the third day of your direct testimony, you testified that this photograph reflected spilled wine in penthouse 5 on May 21st, 2016, didn't you?
Again, I don't know because I'm looking at a partial picture of a floor. So unless you remove the metadata you've covered up, we could then tell. If you
I didn't cover it up, Your Honor.
Could we unredact them so we could get context?
That's how it's in evidence.
That's how it's in evidence.
Next question.
Well, the metadata next to it is so that
Ms.
to
Heard,
avoid this
Ms.
sort of
Heard,
confusion.
there is no question pending, and I would appreciate it if you wouldn't be making argument to the jury.
Sorry, I
It's
thought you had
inappropriate.
asked me about it.
No, I didn't ask you about anything. Let's look at your direct testimony from the third day. Do you see that you're testifying that defendant's exhibit 725, which is reflected on the right side, reflects spilled wine on the floor in penthouse 5?
That's correct.
Okay, and defendant's exhibit 512 and 725 seem to be different versions of the same picture, don't they?
That's correct.
Okay, so which is it? Which one was taken on December 15th, 2015, or May 21st, 2016?
If you remove the redacted metadata, you can find out. It's right there.
Or if you're telling the truth, you would know.
Recognize a portion of of spilled wine on a floor, and I'm supposed to know off the top of my head when you've
No.
lived through 5 years of this stuff? I don't think so. That's not how that works.
And you told this jury that on this occasion, Mr. Depp was kneeling on your back.
That's correct, in the closet.
And you also told this jury that you wore a backless dress to the Mordecai premiere that very same night.
I did.
And you testified that you were checking for bruises in the car on the way to the event to make sure that there were, quote, no visible marks, right?
I was checking on my phone after the event to make sure that they couldn't see anything.
Your testimony was that you were checking in the car on the way to the event to make sure that there were no marks on your back.
Perhaps I misspoke or misunderstood. It was on the way back from it was after I was concerned. After, concerned that there would be marks in any photographs since we were being photographed at Johnny's press event.
And you didn't show this jury a picture of you in that backless dress, though, did you?
I don't know what you mean. I'm sorry.
You didn't show this jury a picture of you at the Mordecai premiere wearing a backless dress, did you?
I haven't had the opportunity to.
Okay.
I assume you have it?
I do. Let's please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 1256. This is you in the backless dress at the Mordecai premiere in Tokyo, right?
That is correct.
You would agree that there are no bruises or visible marks on your back in this picture?
No, not that I could see.
So you were looking to see if Ms. Heard had any injuries, and you determined that she did not. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And was the lighting good enough in the hallways for you to make that determination?
Yes, the hallways was well lit.
Up until that point in time, did you see anything that made you believe that there had been an act of domestic violence there?
I did not.
Ms. Heard, you just testified that this case has been very hard for you. So let's talk about that and why.
All right.
Your lies have been exposed to the world multiple times, right?
I haven't lied about anything I've been here to say.
You sat here and told this jury that the events in Hicksville started with Mr. Depp getting really upset about a woman leaning on you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's effectively what happened, yeah.
You testified that he actually grabbed that woman's wrist and twisted it, right?
And told her that he could effectively break her wrist by saying he knew how many pounds of pressure, or asking her how many pounds of pressure it took to break a human wrist.
But your own witness, your former best friend, Rocky Pennington, she didn't corroborate that, did she?
I'm not quite sure what part of that night she saw. There were a lot of people there.
She didn't testify that Mr. Depp grabbed anyone's wrist in Hicksville.
Again, I don't know what Rocky saw. There were a lot of people there that night.
You testified that once you brought Mr. Depp back to your trailer, he trashed it, correct?
That is correct.
And the manager of the Hicksville trailer park was furious that Johnny had wrecked the whole thing. Do you remember that testimony?
That's correct.
Well, we heard from that manager of the Hicksville trailer park, Morgan Knight, on Monday, didn't we?
I'm not quite sure who that guy was or if he had any involvement in this. I know a lot of people have come out of the woodwork to be involved.
So here we have Amber Heard is confronted with an inconsistency of one of her stories. And instead of coming clean about it, she double downs on her story and says that the witness, Morgan Knight, who's the owner of the Hicksville trailer, wasn't in fact who he said he was, or he wasn't there.
I hate to say it. I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is. I mean, he could be walking down the street. I wouldn't know a thing. Sorry to this man.
So you're accusing Mr. Knight of testifying and committing perjury?
I'm not accusing anyone. I just don't recognize that man.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that it was actually you who was upset with Mr. Depp spending time away from him. Isn't that correct?
How would he know? He wasn't there.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that it was actually you who was yelling at Mr. Depp.
Again, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of things to be involved in the Johnny Depp show, but
He wasn't there. He doesn't know. And he certainly doesn't know what happened behind closed doors, like most people.
So you're calling Mr. Knight a liar?
I am saying he wasn't there, and what he testified to doesn't match what I know happened. But I don't fault him. He wasn't there, so how would he know?
He testified he was there, Ms. Heard. Did you hear that?
That's his testimony, yes.
So you're calling him a liar?
I'm just saying he wasn't there.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that the trailer wasn't trashed, and that's why you're calling him a liar.
He testified that a light fixture was broken, similar to the way that
Yes,
Johnny's
other than a light
employees
fixture, that was
testified
the
to
only
my
thing that was
closet being
broken, right, Ms.
rearranged
Heard?
and things
Ms.
like
Heard,
that.
the only thing that was broken in the trailer, according to Mr. Knight, was a light fixture. Yes or no?
I realized that he summed it up by saying a light fixture was broken, just the way his security guard summed up him trashing my closet as being rearranged.
Your Honor, I'm going to.
And actually were all kinds of accusations flying your way when you said all this. And then there was a divorce settlement. You got $7 million. People were saying this is all about the money. But then you did something that twisted that whole argument. What did you do with that money?
$7 million in total was donated to, I split it between the ACLU and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
ACLU is a human rights organization.
Sorry, ACLU is a prominent organization, nonprofit organization in the United States. It's called the American
Right.
Civil Liberties Union, and they work on behalf of marginalized communities on the ground and in legislative reform.
Right.
And
Well, more power to you, because that's something that I've never
I
heard
wanted
of.
nothing.
I split it between the ACLU and the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, end quote. Right?
That's correct. I made that statement as soon as I got a divorce and we reached the settlement. That's when I pledged it, right then.
And you say this because you, quote, wanted nothing, end quote.
That is correct.
But you hadn't donated your entire $7 million settlement to charity at that point, had you?
That's incorrect.
Sitting here today, Ms. Heard, you still haven't donated the $7 million divorce settlement to charity. Isn't that right?
Incorrect. I pledged the entirety of the
Ms. Heard,
settlement, $7
that's
million
not my
to
question.
charity, and I
Ms.
intend to
Heard, Ms.
fulfill
Heard,
those
Ms.
obligations.
Heard, that's not my question.
I didn't want anything and I didn't get anything.
You wanted Mr. Depp's money.
Didn't get it, wasn't interested in it. I loved Johnny, that's why I was with him.
You testified under oath that, quote, the entirety of your divorce settlement was donated to charity, end quote, didn't you?
That's correct. I pledged the entirety.
No. Ms. Heard, my questions. Your counsel will have time to redirect you after. You testified under oath, quote, the entirety of your divorce settlement was donated to charity, end quote.
That is correct. I pledged the entirety.
Under oath, that statement wasn't true, was it, Ms. Heard?
I'm sorry, I don't follow your question. Sorry.
You testified under oath, quote, the entirety of my divorce settlement was donated to charity, end quote. That statement wasn't true.
It is true. I pledged the entirety to charity.
The statement.
When you say you buy a house, you don't pay for the entire house at one time. You pay it
I'm
over
not asking,
time.
Ms. Heard.
All right, next question, please.
Thank you. That statement isn't true today, as you sit here today, is it?
It is true. I pledged the entirety.
But you didn't donate it.
Unfortunately,
you didn't donate it. It's a yes or no.
I haven't been able to to fulfill those.
So that's a no, right, Ms. Heard?
I made the pledge. I want to be very clear. I pledged the entirety. I haven't been able to fulfill those pledges because I've been sued.
You had all of the $7 million for 13 months before Mr. Depp sued you, and you chose not to pay it to the charities you pledged it to. Is that correct, Ms.
I
Heard?
disagree with your characterization of that.
Is another one of the examples where if you pull back and you think about it, I shouldn't have to have donated it in an effort to be believed. I shouldn't have had to earmark the entirety of that in order to have.
You shouldn't have, but once you said you did.
Right, which is where it was intended to go.
I'm convinced the more Amber Heard speaks, the more she exposes herself. So Johnny's team and lawyers have indicated that Amber Heard only donated the divorce settlement to bolster her claims that she was abused by Johnny, which she adamantly denied on the stand if you watched the court case. Then on the Dateline interview, she just said, I shouldn't have had to donate the money in an effort to be believed, or even earmarked the whole thing. So she was still trying to, I guess, keep the money, but she wanted to say that she donated it so that people would stop calling her out on what she was actually doing. Because in reality, she never donated the entire divorce settlement, and that she did keep some for herself.
I'm not sitting in this courtroom snickering. I'm not sitting in this courtroom laughing, smiling, and making snide jokes. I'm not. This is horrible. This is painful.
You know, I really tried to believe Amber Heard. I really did. But the more she speaks and the more evidence that comes out, the more that her claims aren't believable. But she does continue to use techniques to attempt to gaslight the public because she wants to convince us to buy into her narrative. She wants us to not trust our own senses, our own eyes and ears, to look at pictures and see that you submitted multiple pictures that were the exact same picture, but you said it was different days. You know, she wants to say she had a bruise on one day and then the next day it's magically gone. So it's just really hard to buy anything that she is saying. I had some more clips, but this video took way too long to make because it's just so many examples of her inconsistency, and it's so exhausting to kind of go through these. I think I'm going to have to take a break on doing any long, like, case studies like this because it's just way too much. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed seeing this compilation of clips, go ahead, hit the thumbs up button, leave me a comment, and don't forget to share the video and subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you in the next one.